Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Meyer. I'm the Executive Director of US Chess. And with me this evening is Ken Ballou, who is the parliamentary designate for the upcoming Special Delegates meeting. And Ken also serves as chair of our Elections Committee. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the technology we're going to be using to run the Special Delegates meeting and how it supports the Robert's Rules of Order that have been adopted for this special meeting. Actually, they've been proposed for this Special Delegates meeting. Sorry about that. So just briefly, this is our agenda for the topics we're planning to cover tonight. An introduction to Zoom, the meeting platform that we're using, the basics for the Special Delegates meeting, the specifics around Robert's Rules for an electronic meeting, what to do if you have technical issues, and then at the end, we will field questions that you might have. You will realize that we have shut down the chat feature for this meeting as it tends to be a distraction, but we will go through during the course of our presentation and give you some tips on how to be recognized to speak and ask a question during this meeting this evening. So a little bit about Zoom. Zoom is an online meeting platform that allows people to connect visually using video as if we were all in the same room together. And it provides a lot of tools to support the meeting that allows us to run a meeting fairly orderly. I would encourage everybody to download the app for Zoom. It's available from the Windows App Store or directly as a download from Zoom. And it provides the best experience for the online meetings. So, and the most stable environment. The little item that is circled with the arrow next to it is the video camera. That is the Zoom icon in case you're looking for it on your computer once you've downloaded it. And I can assure you, after being on a Zoom meeting once or twice, you'll discover just how easy it is to use. In the lead up to this set of meetings and the Special Delegates meeting next month, the US Chess Executive Board adopted a set of requirements, if you will, for the Special Delegates meeting. They are requiring that delegates have their video running during the meeting, that each delegate have his or her own registration for Zoom because it allows that delegate to participate fully in the meeting. Mics will be muted during the meeting unless you're the chair or have been recognized to speak, to minimize the interruption and to allow the meeting to flow. The chat feature, as it is tonight, will be off during the Special Delegates meeting so as to not be a distraction. And for those who asked during our first Zoom and Robert's Rules meeting a couple of weeks ago, we have set up a Slack workspace for the delegates to use to discuss the varying items on the agenda. There are a number of channels already set up, and that will be a way that both before and even during the meeting that you're welcome to share ideas and debate and discuss issues that are timely. We also encourage everybody to check your audio and video settings before the Special Delegates meeting. That's some of what we're trying to do this evening. You can set up a free Zoom account and test these things on your own. You can log into a fake meeting you set up, and as you're logging in, it gives you the option to test both your video and your audio. I encourage you to do that, not just once, but every time really that you log into a Zoom meeting. And then I will point out that depending on the type of device you're using, whether it's a phone or a tablet or a computer, and which operating system. So I work primarily on a Mac, but we have a lot of Windows users, and if you're accustomed to using Chrome as your browser and you're not going to download the app, the placement of certain features will vary. And so I encourage you to download the app and become familiar with the different features that you're going to need for the upcoming special delegates meeting. And I'm going to point out a couple on this next screen. The mic in the lower left and the video right next to it are two things that you're going to want to be able to turn on and off, and encourage you to find those now on your screen and click your video on and off just to make sure that you know how to operate that. It's just a simple mouse click. Okay, another feature of Zoom allows you to rename yourself. And I took this picture earlier today. You can see in the participants window, and everybody should have access to this. It's the two little people. It says participants on your Zoom bar. And you'll see in this particular meeting that's live right now, a whole host of people, probably close to 30. You can click on your name, as I'm doing in this next window, and click on the button that says more, and there's a drop-down menu, and if you click on rename, a dialog box opens. And we're encouraging everybody who is a delegate representing a specific state, not a DAL or some other, like a board member who doesn't have a specific state, but to put in their state so that everybody who may not know you in person can become familiar with what state you're representing. I just threw in North Carolina because that's where I live. And when you hit, update name or change name, it now appears as you changed it on the participant window. You have already passed your first test by virtue of being in this meeting. We are requiring that everybody register in advance for the special delegates meeting and for each of the town halls that we're conducting in advance. This allows us to gauge how many resources we need within the Zoom platform, but more importantly, this is akin to credentialing delegates as if we were at an on-site meeting together. When you register for the meeting, we send you credentials so that you can access the meeting. And in a way, those credentials are like your name badge. So you've passed your first test. Like I said, Zoom is really easy to use. And I'm going to pass it on to Ken, who is going to talk now about the Roberts rules for electronic meetings.
Thank you, Carol. Mostly what we'll be discussing is not Robert's rules, but how we're going to vary the rules or supplement the rules for an electronic meeting. So we have some of these issues will be discussed in more detail in future slides. I'll just go over this quickly. Login information, as Carol has just mentioned, you're going to have to register for the meeting. Now, there's 2 days of meetings. You should take careful note. You'll need to register for each day separately. They are 2 separate meetings. We're going to be opening registration for each day's meetings at least 6 hours in advance. And don't forget, the meetings will be starting at 12 noon Eastern time and 9 a.m. Pacific time. So you'll need to make sure you give yourself time to register and get the credentials before the meeting. We're going to start, we'll have the meeting available to join at least 30 minutes ahead of time. I think we've even been talking about having it an hour ahead of time. This will give you plenty of time to make sure you have your credentials, that you can log in successfully to the meeting. Make sure that you have time to test your audio and video. And I really would like to second what Carol says. Make sure to test your audio and video for every Zoom meeting, just to be sure. To sign in and out, well, you're going to sign in before the meeting. If you need to leave for any significant amount of time, we're going to ask you to sign out. This is not true, for example, if you need to just take a quick bio break for a few minutes, there's no need to sign out. But if you need to be away from the meeting for any significant amount of time, we're asking you to sign out and then sign back in when you return. This allows us to maintain an accurate count of the number of participants in the meeting, so we can ensure that we still have quorum. And that leads into quorum calls. Normally, at the beginning of an in-person meeting, we have a roll call to establish who's here. In the case of an online meeting, we'll have the list of participants that have signed in, so we won't need a roll call. The president will establish the presence of a quorum by examining the participant list before the meeting starts. And then, during the meeting, if necessary, we can still confirm the presence of a quorum by checking the list of online participating members, unless a member demands a quorum call by audible roll call, and a quorum demand may be made following any vote for which the announced totals add to less than a quorum. Technical requirements and malfunctions, we've already talked about. We're requiring video, and we're requiring that your video be enabled throughout the meeting. Each member is responsible for his or her audio, video, and internet connection. And a technical point, no action of the meeting shall be invalidated on the grounds that the loss of or poor quality of any member's individual connection prevented participation. So your ability to participate in the meeting is solely your responsibility for audio, video, internet connection. We don't expect this to happen. We don't think it will happen. But if it happens that something goes wrong with your connection, if, for example, you're unable to silence your microphone, you have a hardware issue, anything that goes wrong with your connection that disrupts the meeting, the chair has the right to directly disconnect you from the meeting. The chair's decision is subject to undebatable appeal, and the fact that you were disconnected will be recorded in the minutes. Of course, if you solve the problem, whatever was going haywire with your setup, you're welcome to rejoin the meeting. Now, assignment of the floor. We'll see this a little bit later, but there's a raise hand mechanism in the Zoom meeting. To seek recognition, click the raise hand button. You'll be put into a queue. The chair will recognize you essentially in the order that you entered the queue, subject to the restriction, as would be the case in an in-person meeting, that no one gets to speak a second time until everybody seeking to speak to the motion has had one chance already. You'll see a little bit later on, we'll have a slide about display of motions that will make this clearer. But during the meeting, the current motion will be displayed so that all members are certain what the current business is. I skipped subsidiary motions. If you're planning to offer an amendment to the motion, we ask that before you seek recognition to make the motion to amend, please put your motion in an email, and we're going to be asking for those motions to be addressed to Carol, cmeyer@uschess.org. Carol will have that address up on a later slide, and I'm sure that will also be displayed during the meeting. This is very similar to the process where in the in-person meeting, you would fill out a motion form and carry it over to the secretary's table. We need these in writing so that we can have the exact wording of what we're debating. Other subsidiary motions, such as to refer to committee, you do not need to send Carol that motion in advance because it's easy to get that motion correct. Voting. You'll see again a little bit later that Zoom has a polling feature. So when it is time to vote, a poll will pop up with 3 possibilities: yes, no, and abstain. Now, those who have seen me at previous delegates meetings will know that I rail about the fact that there is no such thing as voting to abstain. However, in an electronic meeting setting, it's convenient and useful to have some indication that you've received the poll, you're still here, you're not casting a vote. But this way we can be sure that we can count up members and make sure everything is all right. So it's not really a vote to abstain, but it's indicating, yeah, things are still working. Next slide, please. So we mentioned there would be a raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. I've also seen where it's in the list of participants, you go to yourself and there's a button that you can click for raise hand. If you raise your hand, it's going to put you into the queue of people looking for recognition. The chair will recognize you for 2 minutes, and we really do mean 2 minutes. There will be a timer displayed on the screen to help you comply with that. So just as an exercise, why don't we all try to find the raise hand icon now and raise your hand. Yeah, I see lots of hands appearing in the participants window.
Very good. And if you click on it again, you can lower your hand.
Very good. So everybody can lower their hands now, and we can move to the next slide. When you're recognized to speak by the chair, you will have the floor. And I'm going to ask Alan, I'm going to unmute Alan, and I want to ask him a question. And that question is, will members be prompted on screen to unmute, or will you be unmuting members as the chair?
My intention is to unmute them as the chair.
I think that makes a lot more. I think that makes sense. I think that's certainly the smoothest way so that people aren't fumbling around to unmute.
Problem
All right, so,
if people are unmuting themselves is you end up with somebody saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And you know, if I unmute them, if they start talking and we can't hear them, I'll tell them. So we don't really want people to ask if you can hear you. We'll tell you if we can't.
There may be a limitation of the technology here, given the setup we have. So the chair can ask people to unmute their microphones, but they won't be able to do it unless the chair gives them permission. I think that's how it works.
thank you, Alan. So in fact, you will be unmuted by the chair when the floor is assigned to you. You are limited to speaking twice on a specific motion. And as we've already said, individuals wishing to speak a second time will have to wait until all others seeking the floor have had a chance to speak a first time. You will have 2 minutes to speak. We will be strictly enforcing that. Next slide, please. And here is how you will know how much time you have. You will see a screen, a green background to indicate that you have more than 1 minute, then a yellow background to indicate that your time has fallen under 1 minute, and then finally a red background to indicate that your time is up. Basically, at that point, we will allow you to finish the sentence that you're in And that will be all. Next slide, please. During the meeting, the current motion will be displayed in a shared Google document. You can see on the left side the text of the motion, and on the right side, delegates queued up to speak to the motion. And you'll notice that some delegates' names are highlighted in yellow. Those are the delegates who have already had a chance to speak to the motion. This is a tool that the chair will be using to ensure that people get a first crack to speak before those who have spoken have a second chance. And again, as mentioned, during the special delegates meeting, please send substitute and amendment motions to cmeyer@uschess.org. Make a note of that address, please. And Carol, I'm sure we'll have that available during the meeting as well. It is probably helpful for you to go up to the top of your screen, and there you're able to pull down view menus, and you can view screens side by side, so that on your left side, you'll have, just as in this display, you'll have the motion on your screen, and on the right side, you'll see a gallery of delegates, and you'll see the currently speaking delegate highlighted with a yellow border. Next slide, please. Voting. So we're going to have some polls when it comes time to vote. You can see here a poll that says yes, no.
Sorry, Ken.
And voting is in real time. Results are tabulated immediately. So I'd say let's practice. We have a couple of polls, I think, ready. And here's our first poll. To approve the 2020-2021 budget in progress, you can click aye, nay, or abstain. Okay, 50% so far, yeah. 18, 26, 19, 20, 21, going once, going twice. All right, looks like 22 people out of 26 voted. Here's the end of the poll, and here are the results. So we can see 19 approved the budget, no one against. The motion carries with 4 not voting. All right. So let's try another poll. I think we have another poll. Oh. Nope, let's see.
We do.
Yep. Oh, indemnification of trustees. Okay, it looks like people have caught on to the voting by poll. Very simple. 20 of 26, 21, 22, going once, 23, going twice, sold. And the results. And there we go. And so that's polling.
Ken, I need to back up. There we go.
Well, I'm done with this slide, so I think that's my part of the presentation done.
Oops. Okay, and I am having trouble getting rid of this polling screen. So there we go. For technical assistance during the special delegates meeting, we have, in addition to myself, a couple of staff, US Chess staff members who are going to be on the meetings with us both day. Jennifer Pearson, our governance coordinator, and Dan Lucas, our Senior Director of Strategic Communication. They will be available to answer questions. I think it's desirable that if you email them rather than call, because it will be easier for them to multitask via email than it will if they're having to field multiple phone calls. again, we can't emphasize enough how important it is to try to work out any hardware issues that you might have or internet connectivity issues that you might have in advance of the special delegates meeting. You do need access to a stable, high bandwidth connection to make the meeting as good an experience as possible. In the meantime, if there are things that you'd like to explore about Zoom, if you go to their support links on their website, it's zoom.us, US, and then /support, I think is the address. You will be able to find a lot of support on a whole host of topics. And I've personally learned a lot by just using those resources that are available to all of us. And then again, practicing your setup in advance. It's real important that everybody do that, because we're not going to have the person power the day of to get a lot of people squared away should there be any a flood of technical issues that come to pass. The remaining town hall schedule is before you. Each week, Jennifer Pearson is sending out an email to delegates, alternates, and delegates at large about the upcoming events for the following week. So there is a meeting tomorrow night for the governance task force recommendations. And then the following week is next Wednesday. It will be the next town hall. And then the week of the special delegates meeting, starting on Sunday, there are a series of town halls which are being repeated from the earlier versions of them. I believe at this time, we are going to open it up for questions, and we will be using the same protocols we'll be using during the special delegates meeting. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and wait for either Ken or myself to recognize you to ask the question. Thank you.
I saw Mike Hoffpower.
Good evening, everyone. I have a question. If a member who's attending is unable to attend, can that delegate, email their link to someone else who's like an alternate delegate, and that person attend in their place?
Carol?
Okay, so it's my understanding that there isn't the ability to do a one-to-one swap without going through appropriate channels. And I am going to ask Jennifer Pearson, our governance coordinator, to answer that question, because she is the person who would likely be trying to hunt down the right person to make that happen. So Jen, I'm trying to unmute you.
Yes, and just like the last time we did this, I was looking at who had their hand raised. I was trying to do stuff. So I'm going to ask Mike to please repeat the question.
So Jen, he asked the question about if a delegate wants to substitute for somebody, how does an alternate delegate go about becoming a delegate?
All right.
That wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question was, if I know that I'm not, 30 minutes before the meeting, I'm not going to be able to attend because I have to take my wife to the hospital, and I'm a delegate, can I email my credentials to some other guy and say, hey, you attend in my place because I can't be there?
Okay. Yeah, similar. Yes. And no, actually, you can't do that. It's not that simple. You have to formally resign. So you have to communicate with me that you have resigned, and then I have to go through proper channels to get somebody to replace you. And if the meeting has already begun, then Alan has to approve anybody entering the meeting. So there are rules and special channels, and if it's really last minute, it's probably not going to work.
Thank you, Jen. Louis?
The next hand I saw was Louis Reed.
Hi, just a quick question. With regards to, I saw in the participants list, multiple participants with the same name. Would that affect any kind of voting or polling question? Would they be allowed to vote twice or more if they have multiple sessions?
So each delegate is going to need his or her own connection to the meeting in
But
order
only one.
to, as you saw, each connection gets one vote in the poll. So if there are delegates sharing connections, one delegate is not going to be able to vote.
Right, and I don't see any duplicate names here, Louis, but we will certainly be on the lookout for that possibility during the special delegates meeting. And
Actually, I did see that. There were a couple that flashed up where there were two of one person.
was that during the raising hands?
It was just a second ago, just as we started talking about it, I scanned down through the list and I did see. So I'm not sure how that's even happening.
Well, somebody could use a secondary email, but we'll be on the lookout for that. And that's another reason that the board has required that video be used during the meeting to eliminate the possibility that the integrity could be called into question of the special delegates meeting.
I've also seen a case in Zoom where a name appears twice. If somebody tries to join with computer audio and is having difficulty and then calls into the meeting by phone, so that comes up as two different connections.
All right, Guy and Sandy, you're recognized.
No, it took us a long time to find the raise hand. That didn't work. I just thought there was an icon. We don't have that icon at all. The other problem I have is I'm attempting to use the second computer and it is not done anything. All it does is sit there with the Zoom logo. I have nothing there at all.
Guy, why don't you reach out to me before the end of Wednesday? I'll be out Thursday and Friday, and I'll work with you to get the other one set up, okay? Send me an email tomorrow.
Okay.
I see Leila. You recognize Leila?
Hi, I'm the person whose name shows up twice, and somebody figured it out exactly. There's an issue with my laptop that has been for 2 days where I'm not getting audio on it. I tried to join the meeting a couple of times, couldn't get the audio to work, and finally decided the solution was, in order to be able to read what's shared, I have to have my computer open. I can't read it on my little bitty phone screen, but I went ahead and joined on the phone so that I could get the audio. So I will get that worked out. I will not be two people and be voting twice, but that is exactly what has happened.
No problem. Thank you. I see Alan Priest.
That was my comment. I said we actually did see Leila in here twice, but that's where it's helpful where we've got the video camera because we can see Leila's face from two different angles. We know it's really one person there rather than having two people logged in with the same login. So that's one of the reasons why the video camera is required if you're going to participate in the meeting. You've got to have the video on.
Thank you. I see Rachel Schechter.
Yes, hello. I have a question regarding the motions. Will we be receiving them prior to the 8/15, 8/16 weekend? And if so, when?
Rachel, are you a delegate?
Yes, I'm a delegate from Illinois.
So back around the first week of July, a packet went out to all delegates and alternates and delegates at large by mail. And in addition, we have set up a page on the US Chess website that is accessible. If you go to About Governance, off that governance drop-down menu, there is a link to the special delegates meeting page where all of the information has also been uploaded. So I'm sorry that you didn't receive it by mail, but it was also emailed to everybody at the time. It was dropped in the regular mail and is also available online.
Thank you, Carol. I did receive it by mail. I thought there were more motions. So,
No, the agenda, once it's set, this is a special delegates meeting.
okay.
There's no ability to add anything to the agenda.
All right, thanks very much.
Sure enough.
I see, I thought I saw Mike Needman had his hand raised. Mike?
We're trying to unmute him.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. While we were doing the polling, I voted quickly, but then I did not see any numbers at all. I only saw then the final percentage of each of the votes. I didn't see the raw numbers. Is that something that we can fix? I mean, you guys obviously were seeing those, but I wasn't seeing them. I assume the other people were not seeing them either.
I didn't see them.
I'll have to look to see if that's a setting. I don't know the answer to that, Mike. I think it's only percentages that are shown at the end, but I will.
Yeah, because I don't know if there were 5 people that voted or 100 people that voted.
I see Leela.
Is that
Does
Leela
Leela
1
have-
or Leela 2?
It could be the other.
I unraised my hand. I don't know why you still see me.
Oh, okay.
I already-
It's fine now.
In there twice.
But I only raised it on the phone. I didn't raise it on the computer. And I unraised it.
I'm raised now, so thank you.
I actually
I
couldn't
rec-
find the place to raise it. Okay.
Sorry?
I couldn't find the place to raise it on the screen.
I see Andrew Ray.
Yes, hello, Ken. Thanks
Hello.
thanks to everyone for your service here in advance of our special meeting. A question I have is with regards to the timeliness of when we enter the meeting. Right now, the DC Chess League is scheduled to have their final round online, of course, on the evening, night of, and usually extends as late as 2 a.m. on the Friday the 14th. And my time will be devoted with that. I should be able to make the 12 noon start time, but what happens if I'm late? How would I join progress and be able to notify the chair or notify you that I'm joining at, say, 12:15?
Carol, would you take this, please?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Once you're registered for the meeting, Andrew, you'll receive credentials to join. And I suspect that we will have no problem establishing a quorum this year. So just showing up, even if it's 15 minutes late, I don't anticipate that there's going to be the formal roll call, since we'll be able to see who is logged in, given the way we're controlling the availability of the credentials and our ability to see all the participants in real time. So I think you can just show up if you happen to be a few minutes late.
All right. Very well, thank you.
Is there anyone else with questions? Any more hands up? Going once. Going twice.
Well, we really appreciate everybody taking some time out to become familiar with what we're attempting to do next month. And in the meantime, if there are questions that you have before the special delegates meeting, please feel free to reach out to either Ken or myself or to anybody on the executive board, and we'd be happy to try to answer them. And thank you for everything you do for US Chess, and we look forward to connecting with you through the rest of the town halls and again at the special delegates meeting. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time, everybody.